to the Retrograde video game podcast, where this week we pay homage to the Sega Genesis.
Oh my goodness, my name is Andrew Baskin. With me as always is the bad boy of podcasting, Mr. Bebop himself.
Mike Keeter, Gabriel Aaronworth.
Nice, very good. Very good. Genesis joke, yes.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to go biblical.
I could have.
And
I mean,
said you went pop.
there is an argument to be made
Uh-huh.
that some of Peter Gabriel's work is biblical, my friend.
Yes, it is. It's that good.
If red rain started falling down, that's pretty biblical.
That's very biblical because it's going to start at Red River or whatever, the Red Ocean.
Red Ocean. The Red River's
Red Sea. Jesus Christ, took me 3 tries on that one.
Red River's in
You split the 3.
Winnipeg, I think.
Sure. And it
Do you
floods
think-
every year.
How many of our listeners do you think know what Winnipeg is?
That's a good question.
Like, legitimately.
Very few. Unless
Yeah.
they follow sports and they're like, oh, there's a hockey team. But then it's hockey, not like,
What if we're like, the Jets? And they're like, I don't know. But is that
York?
the place where the Blue Bombers play?
yeah. Huge CFL fans.
Yeah.
Winnipeg is is it the capital
Of Manitoba?
Is it the capital
Yes.
of Manitoba?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's capital of Manitoba, a province everyone should know.
What's the capital of Saskatchewan?
Is it Regina?
It's either that or Saskatoon.
Yeah. Just in case, if anyone knows the answer, yell it out.
What's the capital of Ontario?
Toronto.
Ottawa.
No, Ottawa's the capital of Canada.
That's wild.
Toronto's the capital of
That's
Ontario.
insane. We need to
You
try
said that so confidently.
because it makes logical sense.
The smile on your face, like, well, no. Oh, shit.
What's the capital of New York?
Albany.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Not New York City.
Not New
which
York
is also insane.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those. I don't really know. It's so weird that like Philadelphia should have been the capital of America, like almost
America.
of all of its
Wow.
of all of its history and stuff.
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
true.
So many things happen in Philadelphia, and they're like, you know what? We're just gonna start this District of Columbia thing and just go to Washington. And Philadelphia's like, okay, and
Well,
just like
what if-
cucked itself real hard
What
in the
if you
country.
entrusted the torch carrying nature of your entire nation to one state, and you're like, we're gonna symbolize it with this bell, and the first thing they go and fucking do is crack it? I'd be
know.
like, we're going to Washington, thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, everyone's like, this famous cracked bell is a symbol of our solid nature of a country, and everyone's like, but it's cracked.
And if that doesn't give you faith in the integrity of our great city,
Yes.
what about this statue of a fake person, Rocky Balboa?
It's so weird that is a thing.
I want to give a shout out to the What the Famicom crew, who are from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
They're probably cringing right now.
That being said, when I went to Philadelphia, guess what I did? Ran up the steps of the museum,
100%.
Museum art gallery, whatever it is, and then saw the Rocky statue. It's kind of like in Paris, they go like, oh, your Parisians hate the Eiffel Tower because it was supposed to be taken down like
Yes.
90 years ago or
Yeah.
something like that. It was only supposed to be up for 10 years. They're like, ugh, that eyesore. And you're like, oh, shut up.
Yes.
We're from a city that has a fake guy that everyone likes taking pictures of.
I thought you were going to talk about Toronto and be like, they should take the CN Tower down. And you know what I say to that? I fucking love the CN Tower.
Oh, do you?
I love the CN Tower.
Cool.
You don't?
I don't know.
Why?
I don't have a feeling. Why would I have a feeling towards it one way or another?
What? Oh, you don't like architecture?
Oh, that's the argument you're going to make?
I mean,
Architecture?
it's something. You can have feelings toward inanimate objects sometimes.
I agree, but
Really
it's just
good
like
ones.
it's not like, I don't know. There are certain landmarks that were built for a reason.
Right.
This one was built because it's tall. And so I go, yes, it's very tall.
It's also like, we don't want any other building to be hit by lightning.
Yes, only exclusively this building
This
hit by
one.
lightning. And also when it was built, it was so like, if anyone doesn't know this, we live in Toronto. The city is like exploded in the last 10 years.
Yes.
And it used to be like the CN Tower and a hilariously low skyline. And now
Yes.
it's like CN Tower and a bunch of really tall buildings. And it's like,
100%.
oh, the skyline has changed tremendously. So.
I remember, I was always very happy about the fact that we had the tallest freestanding structure in the world.
Dubai.
And then, they go and build the Wiz Khalifa over there.
Wiz Khalifa. Stupid Dubai.
Do you think Wiz Khalifa's take a piss off the Burj Khalifa, off the roof of it? That'd be cool.
I think the Burj Khalifa and Wiz Khalifa should take a photo together.
I think they should.
Because I've never seen them in the same room.
That's true.
It's kind of a Bruce Wayne Batman situation.
He's one, the other.
I've never seen them in the same
What
room.
if Wiz Khalifa took a whiz off of the Burj Khalifa? Like, why don't we have this?
I don't know. I don't know. This should be something that should be in history textbooks. What are we teaching our children?
Not the right thing.
Yeah, cracking the Liberty Bell.
That's true. That's true.
Stupid.
To pay attention to false prophets like Rocky Balboa over here. Ladies and gentlemen, we are recording our second episode in a row today, and we are
starting
punchy
hot.
as all hell.
Yeah.
We didn't last week start talking about video games. Instead, we talked about Civil War. No, not the Marvel one, which does kind of dovetail nicely with our podcast.
Yeah.
The Alex Garland one,
Yeah.
which doesn't really relate to the podcast, but we
Do you want
loved
to start
it
with
instead.
talking about Monkey Man this time?
Let's talk about Monkey Man a little bit. I think we'll get into that. Haven't seen that yet. Did you like it?
I liked it. It's not a perfect film, but it's a very interesting film. They like
It's no Shawshank Redemption.
Why do you say that?
Perfect film.
Oh God, that movie. It's like the highest rated movie on IMDb still.
I think so.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's great though.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Why do you downplay cool things?
I don't. What? Oh, Shawshank Redemption's a cool thing.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
Guy won't stick his dick in Tim Robinson's mouth. Tim Robbins' mouth, because if he does, he's gonna bite it off.
Yeah.
And then he says, if you stick that crowbar in my ears, I'm gonna get lockjaw and bite your dick off.
This is the first part of Shawshank Redemption you talk about.
First and only
is the forced fellatio scene.
Yes.
Wow.
Andrew, I watched it when I was really young. It left an impression.
I would say so. Not crawling in shit. Not that part.
They do that too.
Rita Hayward. No. Do you really like Shawshank Redemption? Eh? Like, it's not like I don't like it.
It's great.
That's just totally fine.
I mean, it's better than fine. It's among the better movies that we've got.
Is it in the, if we're splitting all movies in half, is it in the better half of movies? Yes.
Yes, for sure.
Okay,
which is great.
I'm just trying to understand your premise.
So far you agree with me, I think.
I do.
You haven't proposed another question.
No, I think that's totally fine. I think that's where we should leave it, probably. Frank Darabont, famous movie director, directed just one-hit wonder, baby.
Also, great name.
Yeah.
Frank Darabont.
Yeah.
What more do you want out of a name?
He also did the first season of Walking Dead and then left the show, and then they've been in legal battles ever since.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Frank Darabont sounds like, what's the guy's name who plays...
This is good. I'm glad you brought this up and I had no information ready to go.
I figured I'd be able to get his name before Wayne Jenkins. Who played Wayne Jenkins?
Oh, yeah, John Barenthal.
John Barenthal. Sounds like his name should be Frank Darabont. You know what I mean?
I'm so glad we did this.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't tell me it doesn't make sense.
Frank Darabont does sound like what the Punisher's name is, and he played the Punisher.
Again, you're agreeing with me.
Yeah. I'm just trying to help you out.
Shawshank Redemption is...
imagine if I just didn't agree with you. We're recording a podcast. I'm like, no, I don't think so. And just trailed off.
Some people have had a lot of success that way.
Who?
The Doughboys.
Just hating each other?
Yeah. Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
I've been playing some video games.
Present.
I've been playing some video games.
You're playing some video games.
Yeah,
oh, thank Christ.
I have an update to give because we're a few weeks removed from Balatro.
Okay.
Which was a game that, dare I say it, took the podcast by storm a little bit.
We loved it.
We loved it. Our listeners loved that we loved
yeah?
it. They loved the gameplay segment, which was great. It's over on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Retrograde podcast, if you want to go watch that or any of our episodes.
Yeah.
I assumed after playing it that I was going to be deeply addicted to it. And I played it a fair amount. I had a few runs. Runs in that game take a long time. For those of you who didn't listen to our episode on Balatro,
what is Balatro?
It is a poker-themed deck-building roguelike game, which is the best way I can describe it. It's also the way that it describes itself. It's similar to any other deck-building game where you start with a fairly basic deck and you build it up as you go to make more and more powerful poker hands, which will get you and net you more and more chips. I played through it a few times. I did an entire run successfully, felt great. And at a certain day, I woke up after having played it a couple days in a row and just felt like, I think I'm good. Like, I think I'm done.
No more.
And you know what the ancillary effect it had on me was? Rather than wanting to go back and play Balatro.
You want to play poker?
No, Slay the Spire.
Oh.
I'm now addicted to Slay the Spire again. It reminded me that I love deck building games, and Slay the Spire is fucking consuming me again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've been playing a lot of Slay the Spire?
I've been playing a lot of Slay the Spire.
Oh, wow. Okay.
A game that I say quote unquote beat earlier, even though you can't really beat it. You just continue to do runs that are more and more difficult. But
you need all the credit you can get. So just say you beat it.
I beat it, Andrew.
Yeah.
I turned it on, and
Wow.
that is the hardest part. They say getting to the gym is the hardest part.
They say that?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. It's not the squatting.
It's not the actual lifting of heavy
No.
weights.
That's the hardest part is getting yourself to the gym.
Oh.
That's what the trainer says. And then they say plank for 5 minutes. And you're like, The drive was actually pretty easy. I listened to a podcast.
I sat down. I was sitting the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah. My gym's across the street from where I am.
Oh.
That cannot be the hardest part.
I think it's just mentally. It's deciding
Mentally
to
is
go.
putting on shoes and getting across the street.
No, putting on shoes is also pretty easy, Andrew.
I've got those
the
Skechers
mentally
slip-ons
part.
so you don't even need to bend over for that they keep advertising for old
Wow.
people. Yeah.
Skechers. So you're really phoning it in, eh?
I would never in a million years wear Skechers.
I was going to say, I'm like, that's finally when you're like, you know what? Maybe all my ambitions going out the window.
Yeah, 100%. You know what? Actually, in a very lateral move though with shoes, I am now wearing like Birkenstock clogs.
Oh.
As like casual things, walk the dog, go across the street, things like that. And I've really mailed this in. 1 year being married almost. And I'm like, I could care less what I look like.
I haven't gotten to that point yet. I still put on like nice shoes when I go to walk the dog.
Yeah, do you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm in sweatpants,
Uh-huh. you're very sick at that point.
Very sick.
Yeah.
I will put on trousers to go outside and walk the
Over
dog.
top of them, yeah.
Yeah. I will take them off.
Still comfort, but it's looking stylish.
Yeah, gotta. Yeah, and also
100%.
looking like my legs are a little thick. It'd be nice. Really nice.
That's what the squats are doing.
I've been playing, not well enough because I still keep doing only the hardest part of going to the gym. I show up, I'm like, punch my ticket, I go home. Slay the Spire's been great. I also went back to another game that I've talked about on this podcast, but I have an update because I've played it in a slightly different way. Now,
left-handed.
And I beat it.
Wow.
I beat it left-handed. Call it The Stranger.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Sit on it for a while.
Yeah. No, I went back to play Death's Door, which is a game that I've talked about 100 times on this podcast.
Right.
It legitimately is one of my favorite games of all time. I'm enamored by that game. I think everyone should go out and play that game. The reason why I went back to it is because I initially thought, I'm like, you know what, I feel like something familiar. I've been playing like Baldur's Gate and I've been playing Disco Elysium and these games that don't require a lot of like mechanical input. So I wanted to kind of challenge myself a little bit and play something that was fun as opposed to just, engaging. So Death's Door was perfect for that. Didn't have to relearn any of the systems or all that. I started a new game. And then I remembered once I was like a couple hours into, I stroked my beard.
A little light bulb up top. I remembered.
Gotta get up pretty early in the morning to get one past old Mikey over
It's
here.
like a Telltale game. Mikey will remember this.
Mikey will remember this. And Mikey remembered that after beating Death's Door, there's kind of like an end game that you can play. And I'm like, man, one of my favorite games of all time. And I haven't beaten it 100%. I should go play this end game portion. I will say this.
Oh, God, that pause. Oh, no.
I will say this. If you're a Death's Door fan and you're also thinking, I'm going to beat the game and then I'm going to go on and continue to play the rest of it and 100% it.
Just say don't.
Just don't.
Oh, really?
Just don't do it. It's fetch quest after fetch quest with no real indication of where you're supposed to go to get the last pieces of the puzzle, or even what the puzzle is.
Oh.
So you pick up this rusty key that opens up a tower that otherwise you couldn't open in the game. And you open this tower and you can turn the whole game world to night. And from there, you don't really know what's changed. You don't know what you're supposed to do, but you start to realize through like occasional pickups or something that there's like these tablets that you might need to get. You don't know where they are.
Right.
So you pretty much, it forces you to explore the entirety of the world over again.
Okay.
So like trudge on foot through every different screen of the map in order to pick up all the different collectibles to pretty much just light up a door and get like the quote unquote true ending of the game, which is like my least favorite form of game design, where it's just like, go retread your steps, not in a Metroidvania way where it's like, now you can go somewhere new or do something different. It's like, just go do what you already did and hopefully you'll find something, but we're not going to give you a clue as to what that thing is.
Yeah.
I literally, the only way I could beat it was by looking up online what the next step was, because I didn't care. And because of the frustration and the emptiness of the world when you turn it to night, it felt like inconsequential to be exploring anything.
Right.
The one benefit is, and I'll say this, there is a boss fight with the Gravedigger, who is a character in the game. The Gravedigger.
Oh, wait, the monster truck?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, he comes into the game and you actually have
awesome.
to, the fight is weird. It's not what you expect. You frame him for drinking and driving.
Whoa. The truck itself.
The truck itself. You put alcohol in its gas tank.
Drunk.
It's just exhuming.
Exhuming.
Speaking of the Gravedigger.
Yeah, that's great.
You fight with it. It's one of the more challenging boss fights in the game. And I kept playing it and it was like, I'm pretty good at that game. It's not the most difficult games, but I kept beating the boss or kept facing the boss and dying at like the last stage of it because he has all these minions that kind of show up.
Right. And
it was that?
And you're bad.
And mainly it's that.
Yeah.
Mainly it's that I'm bad and I'm struggling to admit that, but I'm not going to say that on the podcast.
Yeah.
And I don't think you should either.
I won't. That will be I didn't say it, but I won't say anything.
No, and I know that you wouldn't. No. And I know that you wouldn't, and I trust and respect you for that. And I think I respect you for not hurting me.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I trust you not to.
And you respect me in other ways too, right?
Yeah,
you respect me enough not to lie to me.
I respect you.
Okay. Very good. That's good. No follow up. So you kept dying at the Gravedigger?
Yeah, because these minions would come and they would be literally enough to fill the screen. Like nothing you could do, they would fill the screen. Oh, okay. And I was like, this is actually impossible. There's no, like, I don't understand. This is the worst boss design I've ever seen. So I died one last time and I shut the game off and I'm like, that's it for that game. I'm never going to beat it. I looked up a video of someone beating that boss online. My game is glitching out. no one else who has that boss fight has this happen to them. And I'm like, oh, there's a reason why I couldn't beat it. It just spawns like it's like you ever see those videos of people like squeezing blackheads out of their nose where they all just come at like from everywhere. They just like snake out of the ground. That's what I was getting. But for them, it was like 3 or 4 of them. My game was just glitching out. It was fucking annoying.
Okay, well, we just got an insight into Mikey's algorithm on YouTube, I think, or something.
Dr. Pimple Popper. Yeah.
That's a show, right? That's a TV show.
Yeah. And also a great follow on TikTok. There's a TikTok channel that I got into. Do you have any weird TikTok, like weird things like that? Like, you know. My
algorithm very much thinks I like ASMR. Oh. And very much one specific type of ASMR, like
soap cutting?
No. Oh, what the fuck? Soap cutting?
It's a thing.
Okay.
It's great.
I'm not here to shame anybody for their kinks. But is it...
It's not a kink. I'm not jacking off to it.
Okay. Sure. Yeah, okay.
No, I'm not.
Okay, you don't have to. Don't worry. I
respect you enough not to
lie to you.
Throw me under the bus.
Okay. No, it's like doctor examinations.
Oh,
and they're like, oh, we're just gonna feel your hair here and stuff like that. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here?
What is that? That's a sex thing.
It's 1000% it's a sex thing. It's playing doctor, and it's like one thing, and I'm like, how did I get on this?
Like, you can't stop watching.
Well, because you're also like, what is this?
Well, you also can't scroll because you're too busy jacking off double-handed.
Two hands. I'm like anaconda-style penis. That I'm like, oh, God. I'm like trying to nose up the TikTok. Like, come on,
you have an anaconda-style penis? I have an echidna-style penis. It's 3-pronged. It's so inconvenient.
I wish I had a third hand.
Yeah.
Then I'd be all set.
And echidna, for all of those of you who conveniently haven't listened to our Sonic the Hedgehog episode, is what Knuckles is.
Yes.
So Knuckles canonically has a 3-headed penis.
A Cerberus of penises.
Yeah.
A Cerberus?
Cerberus?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. If you cut one off, too.
2 grow out.
That's the sad thing. They don't.
Yeah, they don't.
And I had to find out the hard way.
Oh, God, yeah. That's how I found out.
So I'm more 2.5 now.
Everyone keeps talking about lizard people and conspiracy theories. How I found out I wasn't a lizard person when I cut off my arm and it didn't grow a back.
Oh, that sucks when that happens. I hate when that happens. That's always the worst. Yeah. No, the reason I asked your TikTok algorithm is because there was one that I got into that I also didn't know existed. But it's getting like a cow's hoof will like grow around splinters and stuff.
I get this too.
And it's like shaving them down and then like washing it underneath and like.
This is close to your pimple popping thing.
Yes, though. Yes. That's why I bring it up. Yeah.
So they get like something stuck in their hoof. And so when the guy takes off the horseshoe, the shoe, they shave them down and they go, oh, I got to take this out. But in that time, it's become very infected.
Yes.
And if you are queasy, take your earbuds off for 2 seconds. The amount of liquid that flies out of this hoof is like 2 liters.
Yes.
Like it's a couple quarts, it's a couple gallons.
Yeah.
It's just like flying out, disinfected.
But it looks like the most, if that were to happen to you, it would feel so satisfying.
And you could hear the cow going like, oh, holy shit. Oh, that feels so good.
Yeah, I don't know why I was on that algorithm for a while, which is great.
I saw that because there's one guy and it's very impressive. Because the other thing I didn't know much about hooves of horses and cows is like, how much you shave down before that's like something they feel?
Yeah, like palm?
Yeah, like
would it be palm?
Is this gonna hurt? And I'm always shocked by how much it is. And then that transferred into something's wrong with it, and then an explosion out of their hoof.
Yes. Oh,
with an ecstasy
Andrew,
move.
I cannot wait until we're done this recording so that I can just go on to that algorithm and watch it. Like that sounds amazing to me. Yeah, I'll eat lunch and watch it.
Oh, yeah.
Does that bother you?
No, it doesn't bother me.
The pimple popping does for some reason.
I just find it kind of weird that that's something people watch.
I actually don't watch pimple popper. I find the popping of human boils gross.
Yeah, is that what they are?
Sometimes.
I don't even know what a boil is.
You don't?
No.
It's I think it's kind of like a parasite. It's like a giant pimple almost, but like more inset and harder to remove.
It's funny becoming, very much an older adult now. That there's so many things you just don't know that you just never asked, and now you're at the age you're like, hey, I wonder what is that? You know what I mean? Like our dog was at the vet's, and there's like they're like, oh, they have these little calluses under his paws. You look at them, and she's like, oh yeah, that's just like a corn. I'm like, what's a corn?
What is a corn?
I don't know. It's a callus that you build that can just fall off, but it'll leave like a wound or something like that. It'll leave like a thing. And I was like, oh, okay, that's good to know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You're in that stage of having a dog where everything is potentially very bad. Like you have to take them to the vet because you don't know the difference.
Oh, is that funny? I think I'm the opposite where like we were at the vet and they're like, how's it going? I'm like, he's going good.
Yeah.
And she's like, you sure you did nothing else? I'm like, nah, he seems to be pretty good. Like, I don't know.
Well, no, but you brought him to the vet for corns.
No, you had to get a shot.
Oh, okay. I thought
You had to
you
get a shot. And they're like, what
Yeah.
else? I'm like, nah, he seems to be, smiling and.
My player one and I were recently like pretty sick. Like we got hit pretty hard. I think you got hit pretty hard as well.
Yeah.
That's what happens when two people share a room to record an hour-long podcast. We're both going to get each other sicknesses eventually.
Oh, 100%.
But we were like, it was as sick as I've been for a while. Like it put me out pretty hard, and it lasted a while. And right after that, my dog started to have like a bit of a cough.
Oh no.
And I don't think I transferred this sickness over to the dog. That's incredibly rare. I'm not saying that, but the dog was sick.
Kissing.
It's not kissing, Andrew. That's why I knew it wasn't me.
Yeah.
It's just cousin stuff, as they say in the Fallout universe.
Stuff.
But my dog starts coughing, and immediately I'm like, oh my God, I got to take my dog to the vet. And then I started thinking like, wait a second, I just got over it fine. I'm sure my dog can get over a little sniffle as well, and it did, and it's great.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, good. This is going to be so sad when next week's episode is going to be like, rest in peace, dog.
Dog meat from the Fallout universe. Yeah.
Yes. No. So I was just saying about the quarantine. Yeah, I'm just at that age where you just kind of learn things. But yeah,
I love that.
So sorry, Death's Door. So are you going to try and beat it? Or
I
are you
don't think
just
so.
giving
I
up?
think I watched the video of it, and like the guy just kind of falls down. He's like, "Thanks for ending my misery," and then it goes on. And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't need to see that. I just saw it. I'm good. I'm good." If it's glitching out on me, I'm not going to continue to try to beat it against all odds. No thanks.
If anyone knows what Mikey's talking about, Death's Door, let us know. Did you beat Gravedigger? Did you, or are you also having a glitchy game?
A glitchy game. Yeah, it was miserable. I hated that. But I do love the game, and I highly suggest everyone plays it. I just think stop at the normal ending. That's all you need to do.
Hey,
yeah.
They've already given you one ending.
Yes.
Why give you two endings?
Why? Andrew, I know that you've talked about maybe playing some Disco Elysium. I know that you unfortunately went on vacation and your charger wasn't working, so you couldn't play more.
So I was so excited. I went on vacation for a couple of days, and I'm like, oh, lots of time to bring my Switch and beat Disco Elysium, and so we can have that episode. And I show up and it's dead, and I'm like, oh, that's weird. I don't know how that happened. Well, I brought a charger for this. Don't worry, USB-C. That's the one that fits in there. No, Nintendo does not fit in there. And I was like, I needed the branded Nintendo stupid ass charger.
Yeah, you need like a set voltage for your Switch. Like it doesn't have to be a Nintendo branded one, but it has to be like something you do use for like your Steam Deck, or like there's a higher voltage.
Yeah,
it's that's
not your laptop. It turns out. So unfortunately, it died on the first day, and I was like,
that sucks.
Oh,
I can't wait to have that conversation with you.
Yeah.
Anything else on the gaming front before we move on to our Sega?
MLB The Show's doing great. Fallow's doing great. Mythical Season's doing awesome. Now there's Avatar. I believe it's Avatar. A waterbending, firebending. Type of thing. Yeah. It's actually a lot of fun, and it became so meta immediately that the waterbending was like by far the best.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so you got to get very used to that.
Talk about this waterbending. Talk about this airbending.
Yeah.
Can we talk about this gender bending?
Yeah, can we?
Can we talk about it?
Let's just in the world of Fortnite,
get into the weeds.
Yeah.
You should have to pick male or female.
You should have to say what your pronouns are.
You
immediately.
should. You got to. You should. And you should. There should be maps. Oh my God, I can be Epic. Hire me as a consultant.
Come on.
There should be parts of the map that are bathrooms.
Yeah,
and you can hide in them against, like, if you're a man, you have to use the man one.
Yeah,
and you can hide against the women because they can't come in there, because they shouldn't be allowed to come in there.
No. It's tough too, because for the last couple of years I've had my one skin, which is JB Chimpansky, which is of course a chimp that went to space in the Russian thing and now has come back total
badass.
Total badass. He's so awesome, and he wears a pink suit. He's really good.
Sorry, did you say he?
You're right. I didn't know. I don't know.
No. I need to know for the sake of this story.
I would assume.
Good, and that's what we should do.
Yes, we should just assume. Yes, 100%. But JB Chimpansky is a great character, and I respect him entirely. I salute him every time.
I salute that Russian cosmonaut.
Yeah, thank you very much for giving your life and coming back like some kind of weird Fantastic Four combination.
That'd be amazing. Imagine going to space and being like, I'm probably going to come back with severe levels of radiation and less bone density, and you come back and you're stronger. It'd be amazing. Best of both worlds.
I think last week was the Fallout episode. And I keep thinking about that. I'm like, should I offer myself some radiation?
We should do that.
Just to see what happens.
Look, it cures cancer.
Yeah.
It also causes cancer. I've never understood that.
Well, it depends what you get.
What do you mean?
I have no fucking idea.
Are these corns?
Yes, these are like corns. This is like, well, I know gamma radiation made the Hulk, and he seems to have a very perfect life.
But he has an enlarged pancreas, and they do think it's terminal.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's why he's green.
That's why he's green.
Oh, no, that's terrible.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Sorry, the Hulk.
Oh, well, Mikey, today,
yes,
we're here to talk about one thing.
We are gender.
Gender and Shawshank Redemption. And check. Thank you very much for coming, everyone. We love your Sega
podcast. Yeah. No, we're going to talk about the Sega. We're going to talk about the Sega Genesis or the Sega Mega Drive, depending on where you were from. Obviously, the Sega was called the Genesis in North America, and outside North America, it was the Mega Drive. It was a 16-bit console. It was Sega's third console, which came after the SG-1000 and the Mark III/Master System, which was the Mark III became the Master System. It was released in 1988 in Japan, 1989 in North America, and received support up until 1997 by Sega, but then Majesco took over distribution and distributed from 1998 to 1999. And that was kind of the peak of Sega. Talk to me, Andrew, about your impressions of Sega and the Genesis and what it means to you.
I was a Genesis kid. That was my first console I ever had. And I didn't
Let there be light, you always used to say.
100%. Well, it followed our strictly religious family.
Yes.
I didn't have a Nintendo device. Oh, I had a Game Boy, though. I would have a Game Boy Color. Okay. So that would be my first Nintendo thing, and then we got the 64 afterwards. But yeah, the Genesis, I didn't have the SNES or NES.
Yep.
It was the Sega Genesis. So this was I have a lot of feelings towards this console.
Was there a reason why your
parents got it for me?
And that's it.
100%.
You just had no choice.
I can't tell you if I told them it was a Christmas gift.
Yeah.
That's Christmas birthday. So I had to wait. I don't care what the release cycle was like. No. That I can't tell if I was the one that told them that. I must have, though, because my parents are not technologically savants. So it's not like they're like, I think they would have liked the graphical systems of the Sega Genesis. He really likes Sonic. So I don't think it was that, but I must have influenced him in some way. And we got a Sega Genesis, and it was awesome. I loved having that because a lot of people around me had the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I was never playing Super Nintendo, and it was kind of fun having a device that was a little bit different.
Yeah, and on this slightly different device, what we want to do today is take a look back at some of the best games that were on it by drafting a team of 6 games. 6 games for you, 6 games for me, and then we're going to put it out to our listeners to see who has the best game. You can let us know at Retrograde Pod on Twitter, at Retrograde Mikey, at Retrograde Andy, or the Retrograde Podcast at gmail.com. Send us your thoughts and we'll read them out on another episode. But before we get into the draft itself, I'll give a little bit of context.
Please.
Thanks for asking of my relationship with Sega Genesis. Honestly, neither do I at this point, because I don't want to say something if you're not into it. So if you're not into it, I'll just fuck me then.
Yeah, much like the Force Fellatio scene in Shawshank Redemption.
No, don't fuck me.
Unless you're into it.
That's what he said.
Yeah,
that's what he said.
He's like, I don't want to even do this if you're not into it.
You have to consent to this.
Yeah. Oh, do you have a headache?
My relationship is similar. I got it on Christmas. It was a gift, I think, shared between my brother and myself. It was bundled with Sonic, and boy, oh boy, was it a different look at video games relative to the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
I can't remember order of operations, whether I had the Nintendo, then the Genesis, then the Super Nintendo, or if it was the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo, and then the Genesis. I know that I didn't get a Super Nintendo until maybe a year or two after it was released. So I assumed that I had a Genesis first, but for some reason, I don't think that was the case. I really do think of them as 2 separate things, and it almost felt like when I was turning one on, it was for one thing, and when I was turning the other on, it was for another thing. The Genesis was this, higher graphic fidelity, better sound. It felt like it was a generation beyond the Super Nintendo in a lot of ways, even though it was still part of the 16-bit generation. It felt like it was slightly more, especially when it came to the music and the colors and the vibrancy. So I have a lot of games that were on it that I only played on it, and because of that, it sticks in my mind as one of my favorite consoles that I've owned, and I'm excited to get into some of these drafts.
Yeah, the way we did this is there's only so many exclusive Sega games.
Yes.
So obviously those are very much into the pool, but it would be games also that we can draft from is games that were kind of well known on the Sega Genesis,
right?
Or games that you and I had affinity on the Sega Genesis.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, if there's an argument that you can reasonably make, and this is like Scout's Honor kind of thing.
Yep. 100%.
If you make the argument that it is the best version of this game on a console for you, so if a game were released on multiple consoles, the Genesis and other ones included, if you can argue reasonably that it was the best version of console games was on the Genesis, then we'll allow you to take that.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So mind if I rattle off a few fun facts about the Sega Genesis before we get started?
I would love that.
A very interesting history Sega's had with consoles, with peripherals, with everything. And, a huge meteoric rise to fame and to a large slice of the market share of the home console market until obviously they sort of fell off. But number one, this is something interesting that this is interesting to hear about this.
Interesting. You hear about this?
I didn't know until I did some research. In South Korea, it was distributed by Samsung. Sega actually relied on a lot of different companies to do distribution throughout the world because they weren't as big of a company at that point. And it had two names. This is in South Korea. Initially, it was called, I couldn't believe this, the Super Game Boy. In between Gam and Boy, there's an asterisk. So like Super, that's synonymous with Nintendo already. Yeah. Game Boy is obviously like Game Boy. Yeah. And it's instead of just being Game Boy, the asterisk is like a censored E. So it's almost like it's the Super Game Boy. Wow. And they've just let the consumers decide otherwise.
You decide.
Yeah.
The free market.
Exactly.
Capitalists of South Korea.
The capitalist, filthy capitalists.
Yeah, everyone, when I think of Korea, I think of
capitalism for sure. And I'm just going to agree with you because I actually, it turns out, know nothing about the economic structure and political structure of Korea. Do you?
Well, one of them, yes.
Which one?
North.
Oh, the good one.
Famous capitalists.
The good one.
Yes, good one. They're not hearing this podcast there, so it doesn't really matter.
Do you think anyone from North Korea has ever listened to this podcast?
No.
You sure?
I imagine their media is censored quite a bit.
Send us an email if you're allowed.
Now, oh my God, that would be amazing. If you're from North Korea, let us know.
Yeah.
With some kind of proof. You can't hold up a newspaper because they don't exist. So
here's the thing, because I hear this is pretty easy. Mm-hmm. Just take a picture with Kim Jong-un.
Yeah.
Or Kim Jong-il.
During his daily visits to everyone's homes.
Yes.
Take your picture with them and
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
With Dennis Rodman, maybe you can take a picture with him.
Yeah. I'd like to think that instead of a citizen of North Korea listening to this podcast, one of the government officials is trying to figure out which ones they can release in the inside. And so some guy is listening to this.
That would be amazing.
Yes.
It'd be like, yeah, these kids don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, they're wrong on almost everything. So it's okay.
It will further confuse our citizens. And I didn't think that was possible.
Yeah. One of them doesn't even wear American blue jeans. So that's good.
American blue jeans. The second name in Korea when it was released, South Korea.
Yeah, thank you.
Was the Super Aladdin Boy.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
I guess it was in tandem with Aladdin.
That was 1994? 92?
Maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
Along those lines.
Yeah.
But isn't that fucking wild?
That's crazy. Aladdin.
It received an add-on eventually to play Master System games, which is interesting because when you think about the Super Nintendo to the Nintendo, there was no cross-playing of those games. And this will also speak to a pattern that Sega had of releasing peripherals for the Mega Drive or the Genesis to kind of like build it out. You know, it had the Sega CD, it had the 32X. It was trying to like make this one console something more, to more or less success. But I think they ultimately tried to move on from the Genesis a little bit too quickly, and that kind of hurt their market share a little bit.
Yeah.
It was directed at older youth instead of children. It was kind of like an all ages thing. And that's pretty, the making themselves seem a little bit more badass. The black casing looking more like a stereo than what Nintendo was releasing, which was marketed directly towards children at the time, and like the Famicom.
And that continues through the device. Being able to show blood. Sega does what Nintendo don't, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And that was a pretty common marketing tactic for them. Everyone knows about that kind of edgy part of it, but what they don't know necessarily is that another part of Sega's attempt to get market saturation or do something that Nintendo don't was to sign famous people for licensing deals. So games like Pat Riley or athletes and famous people like Pat Riley, Arnold Palmer, Ayrton Senna. Wow. Buster Douglas, Joe Montana, Tommy Lasorda, Mario Lemieux, Michael Jackson. All these people had games on the Sega Genesis, which is kind of what a motley crew of people to have games on there. Any of them stand out to you as like, why him?
Michael Jackson.
Well, I mean, at the time.
Yeah, he's the biggest person in the world, but I just like, it's a musician. Like if today they were like Taylor Swift's Battleground.
Bet you it exists.
No, I bet you it doesn't. We would have sure heard about that.
I bet you there is a Taylor Swift video game out there. Whether it's her in combat, I don't know.
I hate to date this, but Taylor Swift new album released today, this morning. And it does feel like a seismic thing still, where like she puts out an album and people are like, "Holy fuck!" Like an air horn goes off.
Yeah.
You're like everyone goes to a bunker and tries to listen to it. So I imagine you really think that, because I'm just saying it's like when she does something, we know about it. You think there's a video game like an iPhone or like game or something like that?
I bet you there is.
Check the App Store.
I'm gonna, or I'll just Google Taylor Swift video game.
Okay, or just Google it.
I think there were like Miley Cyrus, I'm pretty sure would have had a game like way back in the day.
That I buy.
Taylor Swift video game.
Okay, Taylor Swift video game. There's a whole episode.
I'm actually just gonna check my Twitter real quick.
Okay, check your Twitter too. What, you got any emails?
Yeah, I do actually.
Okay. Do you want to read them out loud?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that Nigerian prince got back to me.
Oh, thank God. Oh, fuck. He needs more money.
More money?
Jesus Christ.
Guy.
He got back. He says, "Oh, dear the Retrograde podcast, we want you, but only one of you. If this is Mikey, don't read the rest of." No, I don't have any new emails.
What the fuck was that all about?
Yes. Huh?
Wait, what? Am I in trouble?
No.
Okay.
No.
I'll believe you.
It's not that you're in trouble.
Uh-huh.
I might be in a lot of success.
Hey, I'm really glad to hear that.
And I'll probably, and I'm sure they'll
Your
reach
success
out
is
to
my
you.
success, so.
Well, what does NDA stand for?
Non-disclosure agreement.
Okay, so I actually can't say what I was about to say.
Oh, you signed one already, eh?
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of work here right now.
Yeah, you took a ton of work. So Taylor Swift video game or no?
Doesn't look like it.
Hey, I knew it.
But she's in band. She's in Band Hero though.
She is?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's like young Taylor Swift of like still country artist Taylor Swift.
Yeah, probably.
Not world icon, future president of the United States Taylor Swift.
Probably, realistically.
It's gonna be great when it's
gonna be her
Swift
running
versus
against
The Rock.
Beyonce. Oh, The Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be like everyone's got to choose a side. I'm like,
why not at this point? Why not?
Why not? No, yeah, a reality show host was the president of the United States and probably future president of the United States.
Yeah. Hopefully, again, fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely. Get Sleepy Joe out of there.
So we talk about the licensing. I was gonna say what?
Nothing.
What did you say?
I just always think about the story where Joe Biden said, he was like, there's a guy down the street, corn pop. And I always and people are like, what the fuck is he talking about? And then somebody did the research and there was a guy named corn pop. And it was like one of these things where it's like, I think it's just we've decided that he's like senile. So we're like, everything comes out. So I was like, this guy's an idiot.
Yeah.
And then he's like, corn pop. You're like, oh, that guy existed? Like,
oh, wow.
Okay, well, take it back. Sorry, Joe.
I guess he deserves his seat as the president of the United States. Buster Douglas was the one for me where they're like, this guy beat Mike Tyson, get him signed now. And then he like loses the next
Well, the
fight.
heavyweight division was hot as hell
Yes.
at the time, right?
Yeah.
Even right before Mike Tyson too. Everyone does this thing where it's like Mike Tyson made the heavyweight division matter. It's
Right.
Like, well, no,
No.
in the 80s, the heavyweight division was really good.
Yes.
Evander Holyfield and stuff. So I just, they're Buster Douglas, like, well, he beat Mike Tyson. He must be the champion for next 5. Oh my God.
Oh shit. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That's so that was an interesting choice. Buster Douglas boxing. That's a game maybe we should do on this podcast at some point.
I would love to.
In looking for this is could have shown a very different history of video games. In looking for distribution for North America, they originally used a company called Tonka, but Tonka wasn't really pulling their weight.
Tonka Drugs?
I think it may have been actually.
Really?
Yeah, or like Tonka, like some toy distributor essentially. So most likely.
Or Tatanka, the indigenous wrestler from the 1980s.
It actually was Tatanka.
Okay.
Tatanka and he's like, I don't know how you expect me to do this. I have a very busy wrestling schedule.
I'm on the road like 300 days a year.
You know when he used to like go under the ring and pull out a Sega Genesis and beat people with it?
Do you remember that?
Yeah,
I didn't make
yeah.
that connection.
No.
Oh wow. Special move.
It was and
Using a Sega Genesis.
especially if you added the Sega CD peripheral, because that adds that much more weight to it.
Right, absolutely.
It was really cool. And then he'd like put their face into it, and then on the big jumbotron it would like play a video game.
Yeah,
like,
but no, like he shoved his face in, and then it wouldn't work, and so he blew into their face a little bit,
yes.
and then shoved it back in, and it would work.
that was his special move, was blowing
that's
on their
special
face,
move.
and people didn't realize what that was. Yeah. Tatanka, he was great. Honestly,
What a
very
great
underrated.
wrestler.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so instead they went from Tonka to the heads of Atari to see if they wanted to distribute it, and Atari said no. Instead, they're going to distribute their own console, which was the Atari ST, a largely forgotten, unknown console. But imagine if Atari and Sega had joined up. What would that mean?
What would have it looked like?
I think it would have looked a little something like this. Hello, Dr. Atari.
Oh, long form improv. That's what we're going to start doing on this show.
And it's 21
And
minutes.
scene. We need a location where Atari and Sega would have met. Anybody?
Office building, great.
Office building, very good.
Great.
Poop factory. Okay, sir. We've already talked to you once about that.
Okay, so after originally the Genesis was bundled with Altered Beast as a game, which is kind of iconic for Sega fans, Genesis fans, they ended up getting rid of that in favor of Sonic the Hedgehog, bundling it with Sonic the Hedgehog, which was originally like in North America, it was originally like a big no-no. They're like, no, you can't do this. You can't make these big decisions. And doing it is one of the things that really helped them get onto the marketplace. Like buying a console, which by the way, let's bundle all consoles with video games now. It just seems to be, remember we moved away from that. That used to be very common.
I feel that is still though. Isn't it common still? No. Okay, I feel like you still find, like, especially when you were trying to buy a PS5 and it was like, can't buy a PS5.
Astro's Playroom was bundled with that, which was kind of
But it was like, I feel like it was like Horizon Zero Dawn bundle. Like, there was always all these multiple bundles. You had to kind of pick and choose which was the right one.
That's the thing though, is that's always at like this weird markup, and it comes with like 2 controllers and this and that. But it just used to be back in the day when you bought a console, it came with a game. If it was a Super Nintendo, you might get the Mario and Duck Hunt combo. Or if it was like, I liked that era of gaming.
I'm going to make a wild guess, that especially like NES days, it came with a game so that you knew you had to put a game into it. Like,
that's a great point.
Instead of like buying it going like, well, what the fuck do I do now?
Or how many people, they probably assume people would buy it thinking it could already play games. And then they're like, what the fuck does this thing do? I can't put my DVDs in it. And they're like, yo, this is the 2000s. Why are you using DVDs?
Are you a time traveler? Marty. Oh boy.
He's like, no, I didn't say Blu-rays. I said DVDs. This should play them. Yeah.
Does anyone have any HD DVD players around here? It's like, oh boy, you're from a different timeline then.
Just kidding. It's Betamax. And you're like, now I'm really confused.
I'm so confused.
So yeah, they inserted Sonic, and Sonic obviously was a big answer to Mario from these franchises, and this kind of started this method of counterpunching that Sega did. They were always kind of waiting to see what Nintendo did, and then they would release their own version of it. So they would release for Donkey Kong Country, they would release Vector Man. For Mario, they would release Sonic, and they would do it in their own branded way, but kind of like wait and see what Nintendo was doing and then react, which feels almost parasitic in a way, but clearly worked very well for them.
Yeah, for a bit.
Yeah. Another interesting thing, EA, the company Electronic Arts, led by Trip Hawkins, who made famous John Madden Football, found a way to basically reverse engineer the Sega Genesis so that they could develop games unlicensed for Sega. And they ran them by their lawyers, and their lawyers are like, yeah, you came to this on your own. Like, you can do this and they can't come after you. So Trip Hawkins like cornered some of the heads of Sega and is like, you either give us a really good licensing deal and we do this the right way, or we're going to create pirated games and probably release the mechanics on how to do that to the public. So Sega ended up creating a kind of a lucrative licensing deal with them, and it ended up working out because EA was a great company to have on board with them. Just kind of a weird process of like old gaming, where nowadays I feel like before a console's released, anyone would say, if you create a game for this, like Nintendo's not going to let you create a non-Nintendo licensed game that's going to work. It's got to go through like the e-store or something like that.
Yes.
And then, we talked all about all the different peripherals and the add-ons and the eventual downfall from it, but just kind of a cool storied history of the Sega Genesis and everything that it came to represent in gaming.
Yeah, because this is the peak of Sega. The Genesis was a genuine competitor to Nintendo.
Yeah.
And then, since then did not have the returns it wanted to. The Sega Saturn comes out and it does not do as well as they hope to. And actually that console cycle in general was not gangbusters.
Yes.
So like, whatever, but they couldn't take the hit. And
100%.
And now it's very much an afterthought in modern day gaming.
It almost seems like they were always a little bit too far ahead of the market after the Genesis, between the CD and the Dreamcast and the Saturn, and kind of trying to push it without the industry being ready for it. I'll ask you this question as kind of a way to taper this off. Sega, the Genesis did outsell the Super Nintendo at Christmas time on occasion.
Yeah.
How many years do you think that it outsold the Super Nintendo?
I'm going to go 2, like low.
4.
Wow.
Which is very impressive.
That's crazy. That's crazy for it to be that successful and now is not a thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not something you would have expected.
No, not at all. And it's funny when you go back and do the draft here that we're going to do in a second, that like what games were known for Sega is not a ton. Whereas if we did a Super Nintendo draft, we could go teams of 12 and 100%. You'd be like deep into this.
That really surprised me. And it's funny because when you start looking online for like exclusive Sega Genesis games that actually were not released on any other console, it's way fewer than you would have expected. And you have a lot of, interestingly, games that were not specific to the Genesis and in fact were more Nintendo oriented, but there's like one version of that game that went out on the Genesis and only the Genesis, which is also kind of interesting. So it turns out there are a plethora of games to choose from.
Nice.
Some good, some bad, but I can't wait to get into, Andrew. We're going to do 6 games, and this is just kind of putting out the best roster of 6 games that we can. Again, the more iconic it was on the Genesis, the better. But we're going to play kind of fast and loose with that to
Yes.
allow us to make some interesting choices here.
Absolutely. So we're going to go back and forth making picks. Mikey, do you want to take the first pick?
Andrew, I would love to take the first pick. Before I do you think there are any like standouts?
There's one.
There's one franchise,
But there's one. In my mind, there's one.
Okay.
Of that franchise that I think is more.
Yeah, I think what I'm hoping you're going with is going to be my first pick. It's going to be Sonic 3 and Knuckles as my. That's not going to be yours.
No.
Really?
Oh no. Well, you know what? We can do this together. So you're going to take Sonic 3 and Knuckles.
Yes.
I would take Sonic 2.
So I think I would have chosen Sonic 2 probably from a personal standpoint because that's the game that got me into the Genesis.
Yes.
But I think Sonic 3 and Knuckles, you know, I know they're also arguably two different games because you would like plug
one into the other that plugs into the Genesis.
Yes. But I think ultimately I resonated much more with 2, but I think the world resonates a little bit more with 3 and Knuckles.
Do you think that's true?
I think it's probably split, but I think when it's split, it's because people's first experience was with 2 and not Sonic 3 and Knuckles. But I think it's objectively probably a better game, but not as ingrained in my nostalgia bones. Than
Well, it's funny because, you know, it's hard to separate this in Nintendo. We're probably going to talk about Nintendo a ton too, but like the way Super Mario World came out around with the SNES.
Yeah.
And you get Yoshi and you get all these things. And now all of a sudden Sonic 2, you get Tails.
Yes.
And it felt like this revolution. 3D half pipes. Like that corkscrewing half pipe thing. You're like, whoa, that just felt like you're just blowing your mind. And there's somebody else that's good there that's going to help you and you can assist you.
Yes.
And, was like AI gaming before I even knew it, you know?
For sure.
It just blew my mind in so many ways. Whereas Knuckles being the antagonist version of that was very interesting. Also, like, no wonder the Sega Genesis did well. This black, beautiful console where everything was black and glass, you know, in the 80s.
Yep.
And then you plug one into the other. Must have felt like, okay, wait, what?
It felt like in science fiction movies when there's a really elaborate way to reload a gun and it's like, or like a Duke Nukem game or something.
Totally.
That's what it felt
Predator.
like you were doing. Yes, exactly.
Oh, I completely see why this was just so slick and cool. And it really is. Now we look back on it, and we did this recently where we played Sonic 2, man, I don't know, a year ago or something like that. Yeah. And we were like, you know, whatever. And it's still fast.
Yes.
But I understand why at the time we were like, Super Mario's like,
Yes.
and you're like this little chubby guy's walking around doing stuff. And you're like, well, we have so much feelings for that and it's adorable and it still holds up well. I can understand being 12 years old or something like that and going like, the fuck is this?
100%.
I want to go with this guy who's ripping through this scene.
You got to go fast.
You got to go fast. Tap, tap, tap.
It also had that element of map exploration where you could go up or down. There were like a few ways to get through a lot of the levels, which was really interesting. And, you know, one of the issues that we have going back, which we talked about in our Sonic episode, is the levels don't become fun until you know the levels. And then it's about how quickly you can go through and how smoothly you could go through. But the first time running through a level is like kind of frustrating, especially when you're expecting it to go fast. But yeah,
it's almost like a race car driving game because even to the point that when you hit something and all your coins or your gold rings, explode is both a satisfying noise and it's like, oh, but it's so visceral and visual.
100%.
You're like, oh my God.
And it always makes you feel like you have a chance because you're like, oh, I just need to get one of them and then I'm good. Yeah.
It's like Desperation Simulator. Right? Like, I just need one. Like, oh my God.
That's what most of my life is, Desperation Simulator.
Yeah, 100%.
Don't you agree? Isn't that funny? By the way,
you have strong Tails energy. Yeah.
I think that's the meanest thing you've ever said to me. Oh, you're just...
Yeah, no, I'm totally okay with that.
You're okay with that?
Yeah.
Is it just my passive aggression? Is it my...
Two penises that I float around using like a helicopter style?
That's a downside to you?
No, that'd be really cool.
It'd be really cool.
It would be
especially
horrifying.
If
you took off your pants and started floating like back to the ground, just like around, you're like, what do you think? I'm like, this is terrifying. I do not like this.
You could have turned the cameras off before you did that. By the way, you said slick and cool earlier.
Yeah.
That could be like our Tango and Cash name.
Slick and cool?
Who would you be?
Cool.
All right, I'll be Slick.
I think you're Slick.
I'll be Slick.
More than I am cool, you are Slick.
Fuck. That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me.
See? Back to back.
Man, this relationship we have built is very detrimental to me, and I need your approval.
Yes, exactly. Now you're craving it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes,
Look at my dicks.
Okay. I think
we got to be serious here.
We got to be serious. We're talking about Knuckles here.
We're talking
Did
about
you
Knuckles.
see that they recently announced the voice for Shadow the Hedgehog?
Yeah, it's actually, I did. They're actually blending two voices together as one. It's Chris Pratt and Jack Black.
Really? Yeah, they're in every video game
They're in
adaptation.
everything. Yeah,
that makes sense.
No, I did hear it, but I forget who it was.
It's Keanu.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, he's got a voice for it. I get. I don't have any interaction with Shadow at all. Like, I don't know what Shadow is.
He's carrying Uzis, Andrew. You don't want to get too close
He's got
to
a
him.
gun, right?
Yeah.
Crazy.
This is kind of that weird era of Sonic where they're like, let's kiss human women.
Yes.
And let's shoot people with guns.
Chili cheese dogs. And this is the part that where Sonic is at its peak with me, because I'm like, Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic 2 and Knuckles. Yeah. The 2 and 3 are the peak, because it's like, let's go fast. Let's fuck some stuff, shit up. Let's be great. And then every game from there on out is like, what if you had a gun?
Yes.
You're like, wait, what? What if you had a gun? That's not even close to these games.
They kind of do, and it's weird because Mario, I don't know, did Mario not do that? Because Mario introduces new mechanics and stuff, but keeps it like understandable within the world. It feels like every time Sonic adds something, it's one thing too many.
I agree with you. Like, I think Mario, we have a very short memory for its failures.
Yes.
Where we just go like, oh, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
You know, like, and we have very long memories for the things that worked. Every time Mario goes into a real world, I do not like it.
I don't like that either.
I don't like it. That should not be part of the thing where we, like, Mario's human. He should be back in the normal world. Like, no, he should not.
And yet, when he went to New Donk City,
I don't like it.
It did work for me.
Good for you.
Because it was so, like, wink to the camera. I think it did kind of work. It was like, isn't this, like, there were humans and then there was Mario. Yeah. So it's like, there is a real world, but he actually isn't a part of it. It's, yeah.
I see what you're saying, but like, yes. Whereas like Sonic, it's like, it's cool. We're going to make it edgy. He has a fucking handgun. You're like, whoa, that's crazy. He is going to try and nail that woman. You're like, that is not what I want out of my video game.
It's edgy. He's got a handgun. Did you say a handgun? Sorry, an Uzi. An Uzi. Sorry, 2 Uzis.
2 Uzis, like, and he is rock hard.
The person in that meeting was treating it like someone was asking for detention.
Yes.
Like, Sonic has a handgun. They're like, sorry, I don't think that's a good. Fine, he's got an Uzi. Okay, I just mean, fine, he's got 2 Uzis.
Keep talking your mouth. You're gonna walk yourself right into all these.
He's gonna fuck this woman. You want me to fuck this woman?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with my second pick, a game. Okay. There are a lot of ways I think you can go with this, especially as you get into some of the games that were on some other consoles, but the best version was on Sega. But I want to stick with one that was still unique to the Sega Genesis. Yeah. And it's going to be Sega's answer to Final Fight, which is Streets of Rage. And I'm going to go with Streets of Rage 2 as my pick, because I think that is maybe the best fighting game, like side to side. You know, I know we love to talk about Ninja Turtles. I know we love to talk about the Simpsons games, and I think those skins are great. But mechanically speaking, I don't know that there's a game out there that's better than Streets of Rage.
This would have been my second pick too.
Nice. Okay.
So I think we're well into like whatever the mock draft is of the retrograde version of Mel Kiper. He's like, I think Mikey's going to take this pick here. This is going to be very interesting.
Yes.
We're right in that line right now, and I think this is going right into my order because Streets of Rage is absolutely the right choice. By the way, it's a great game and it handles so well, and it's a game you could play today, and you're like, this game kind of rocks. My second pick, the fourth pick in the draft, is going to be where I think the Sega Genesis does really well.
Okay.
It gets wacky and gets creative and uses all the colors and spectrum that this very powerful device at the time had.
Yeah.
By using incredible sound and incredible visuals, I'm going to choose Earthworm Jim.
Amazing. That's a great pick, and a game that we've done on the podcast as well.
And loved.
Yes.
I loved it. And it's only grown in its estimation since I have replayed it, where I go, man, that game is weird and fun and like wacky
and one thing that it doesn't get enough credit for is how fucking funny it is.
It was so
it's
funny.
So funny.
Yeah.
The game show element where you the answers are nonsensical and you're gonna fail. Yeah. Like those little things are things that we'd never seen in a game before. You know, inspiring guys like Tim Schafer, I think, inspiring some of the modern games that have this wacky approach to it. It just that game was so fucking good. And again, you know, we talk about games that were on other consoles, but the SNES version felt like such a step backwards compared to the Sega Genesis version. Genesis was the only way to play this game.
Yeah, I agree with you. The Earthworm Jim. So yeah, I just have such a good impression of that game. And so that's my second pick.
I also remember finding a cheat in that game. I don't know if it was a cheat or if it was just something weird, but if you smacked the console, your character would start flashing and you could start yourself anywhere in the level.
No,
my brother and I've never heard anyone else talk about that, but my brother and I figured that out probably because we were frustrated and we smacked our game console and we were like, wait, we can go anywhere? We thought we broke it and then we just kept playing. That was great.
That's awesome.
So Earthworm Jim is great as well. And there's a couple choices that I want to make because I'm scared you're going to take them.
Yep.
But this one, I think I have to take because it was the start of, I think we still feel echoes of this game's release today. And I think that it was thought of as, apart from Sonic, the killer app on the Sega and for sports games in general. No one has made and released a game on a console as unanimously understood as being groundbreaking to the sport, to the video game interpretation of it than John Madden Football on the Sega Genesis. Yeah. And I understand that a version of it released on PC, but this was the one that, again, they learned from their mistakes with the PC version. They tweaked it. They added new features. They made the color gamuts better. They made the game a little bit more accessible, especially it being on a home console. John Madden Football as well also released on the SNES later, but it was pretty much just a reskin of John Madden Football 92, which was the second game in the series. So my argument is that John Madden Football was essentially an exclusive for the Genesis and was the harbinger of sports games in the modern day.
It's really hard to argue. John Madden changed sports games entirely, created a whole genre of games that would, at times be the highest selling in America. Madden was so important, and it started on this console because it's a console game. It's not a PC game. So it's really hard to argue on this one. Great pick, because that's where I probably would be going. It was between this or my game that I've got coming up here,
which is I'm worried was going to be my game.
We'll see. I'm going to be taking one of the most important parts of taking Sega Genesis and comparing it to what else was out there was Sega Genesis was edgy.
Yes.
And fun. And it would do the things that Nintendo don't.
Yeah.
And that's so in that way, there's no green blood in this game. I'm going to choose Mortal Kombat 2.
That's a good one. That's a great one. And I totally agree that I think this proved, the release of Mortal Kombat 2 proved that fighting games could compete on consoles with arcades. And that's the most important part about it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's like it had to show its worth a little bit, to show where it was going.
You mean test its might?
Oh, test its might. I think it's part of that. And if we didn't get the Sega Genesis, we wouldn't have this avenue of going like, oh, it's going to be realistic, violence and gore, whereas it's so synonymous with video games now is that, oh, games are too gory and stuff like that. That wouldn't happen with the Sega Genesis. 100%. So I think it's important to highlight that part of it.
Especially in the home. There was the titillating place you could go to was the arcade and you could see the fatalities happen, but bringing it in the home was like a massive step for the game industry. And I think the Genesis was the first time that you could bring an arcade game into the home without really losing any of the quality, which was massive. Anytime they tried to bring an arcade port of a game onto the Super Nintendo, it just didn't quite work as well. The Genesis had enough horsepower in there to like keep up the colors and the frame rate. So a lot of great games on the Genesis were originally in arcade. And Mortal Kombat 2, no different, but what a great pick. I love that one.
Yeah.
My pick is going to be one, I think I kind of have to compete with your Earthworm Jim pick because Sonic 3 and Knuckles isn't a platformer in the sense that we think of platformers. Mario is more of a platformer than Sonic is. Sonic is a go-fast game. Yeah. Earthworm Jim is a platformer. Earthworm Jim has some shooting. Earthworm Jim is colorful and cartoonish. This game is based on a cartoon movie, and it is Aladdin.
Ah, very good. Aladdin, what a good game. Man, we went back and played that very early on in this podcast, and it is sensational. It
is one of I'd say a game that holds up as well as any game does, and was the first time I think we went back to play a game on the Genesis and really made me realize that the Genesis had an aesthetic to it that is very similar to like what we get when an indie game releases a modern day 16-bit looking game. Like there's nothing lost. When you boot up Aladdin, it feels like a modern game. It is incredible. It's such a good game. The music in it is amazing because of the sound chip and the Genesis. It's reminiscent of the movie itself. Love it.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that. I was wondering where that was going to go. I didn't know if that was going to slip later.
Yeah.
To compete with that. Oh man, this is going to be tough. To compete with that, I am going to go with. I thought this is where you're going with that last one. To compete with Earthworm Jim, to be creative, to show all its difficulty. I'm going to go with Toe Jam and Earl.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. It's another one where it's like, the Genesis just got kind of weird and like in a good way.
Yes.
Like where you're choosing these things that are incredibly creative and only with the power side of the Sega Genesis were you able to do stuff like this.
Sure.
And it's such a memorable game for me. I loved playing it. So
Toe Jam and Earl is one of those ones that I think people are going to be very upset that it went down this low. Because it's one of the first games I think people think of when they think of the Genesis. It has quite a long tail. There was a second game on the console as well, which was also very well received. Ultimately, I would love to have it on my team, and I didn't know that you had an experience with it, so I thought maybe I could sneak it into my next pick because it would have been. Yeah. But instead, I'm going to go with one. This is where we have to start killing some of our darlings, and it's scary. I have to compete, I think, actually with your Mortal Kombat 2. And in order to do so, I'm going to go with an arcade port of a game. And this one may be controversial, so tell me if it doesn't work. Okay. A version of this game, the base game, did exist on the Super Nintendo very popularly. It also existed in an arcade, but this version came out on the Genesis and was very well received and then kind of influenced the releases of future games. It's Street Fighter II Champion Edition.
I have this on my list, so I'm not going to fight you on it. Yeah.
It is different enough from the original release on the Super Nintendo that I hoped that it would be okay. And, if you have a fighting game as iconic as Mortal Kombat, I can't have a team without an iconic fighting game.
100%.
So Street Fighter 2, join the fucking team.
Champions Edition.
Champions Edition. It's my edition.
The Champions Edition is very much Genesis to me, where Street Fighter 2 is Super Nintendo in my mind.
Or like Turbo. Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
Yes. Excuse me. Yes, you're absolutely right. So no arguments there. Great game.
Perfect.
This is going actually exactly the way I wanted it to.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm very happy because there's so many good games left. And usually when I do these drafts on the podcast, I usually choose things in the later rounds that are very personal picks.
Yes.
Whereas there's a lot of good games. I'm not going to name them because you might be taking them. But I have to take, in my mind, Sega Genesis. When it's not Sonic, what game do I think of first with Sega Genesis?
Are there still some of those? I'm so curious.
I take Echo the Dolphin.
Oh,
Echo the Dolphin.
Yeah, I couldn't in good conscience take it.
I know you couldn't, so it's okay. I appreciate you leaving it to me in round 5 here. But I loved Echo, and even when we back into play, we played on the podcast, excuse me, I was very forgiving of it. I was the apologist being like, no, it's not that bad.
Yes.
It's not that bad. And everyone's like, no, it's pretty bad. I'm like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. And it is, once again, like I'm kind of talking about with Toe Jam and Earl and Earthworm Jim, it's just weird. Like it's dolphins that are aliens, but and you have to do all these, water in the Sega Genesis, like very,
Sonic, those levels.
Yeah, 100%. So I loved Echo, and I would be amiss if I wasn't taking it on my team.
Well, unfortunately, Andrew, I can't echo that sentiment about the game.
Very good.
But go back and listen if it's still available, because I know we only have the last 200 episodes available to the public, but that episode was great.
What a crazy thing to say.
Yeah.
Only the last 200 episodes are available. Oh my God.
An LSD fever dream, that game. Yeah. The creator was basically like the Philip K. Dick of game creation, just like losing his mind on drugs and creating wacky video game experiences. Echo, great choice.
Thank you.
It's tough, man. I've got one choice left. 2, 3, 4. I do. And I have a bunch of games that I can go with. There are genres that I haven't touched yet.
Well, you know what? Make your pick, and then in between our picks, we can talk about all the games that because then it's only left to me at that point.
Sounds good. I am going to go with. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna go with an iconic game that is very different from a lot of the games that I have, just so I really spread myself thin. Which is not what I,
All right.
I'm going to go with Outrun.
Oh,
the racing game, which iconic.
That's good.
In terms of like the image is such an iconic look and feel to a game. It's got that kind of Miami feel, sort of an answer to Cruisin' USA before Cruisin' USA hit consoles. Yeah. So, I hope that lands well. It was one of my favorite racing games because it was so arcadey. Outrun, join the fucking team.
I love it. No, that's a really good choice. I don't know if I would have chosen that, because now we can start talking about some picks here, because I have something that I'm going to take. So that is completely personal, so I don't imagine it's going to be on any of our lists.
Okay.
Gunstar Heroes.
Yeah, Gunstar Heroes is phenomenal.
Yeah, really good game.
Gunstar Superheroes that came out on the Wii Virtual Console was so good as well.
Yeah. I wanted to mention Ghoulies and Ghosties, even though that is very much a Super Nintendo game in my mind, but
this Ghouls and Ghosts specifically was exclusive to the Genesis.
Yeah. So I wanted to mention that. Golden Axe 2 is my runner-up. I would have taken that if I didn't take this other game.
I can't. Well, I don't know if you're going to pick it, so I don't want to say it. But you already have it picked. So you can surprise us. But the fact that potentially Golden Axe and Altered Beast aren't on either of our lists is
crazy.
Like a big blind spot. But I don't know. Going back and playing those games, I don't think they're as good as people seem to remember.
And then the other one I would have also chosen is Castlevania Bloodlines.
Yes, great game. A
great game. Really good. I probably should.
Another one of those weird, Castlevania largely being associated with Nintendo in a lot of cases, and this one coming out on Sega, but only on Sega, similar to Contra Hard Corpse, whatever. Core, I think, right? Yeah. Being exclusive to the Sega, but also being arguably better than Alien Wars was a hard one for me not to pick.
And the other hard one was WWF Raw.
Yes. Oh my God.
That was a really big one. And I love that very much. But the game I had to choose because it was a game I played a ton of. And funny enough, did I like it? I don't know. It was so fucking hard. It was X-Men.
Oh, wow.
X-Men
that is a very personal pick.
It's very personal. It wasn't even that big of a game, But man, oh man, it was so hard. And it was like straight out of the comics I was reading at the time too. So that was a big part. It was the Outer Worlds, and it was like the Lost Lands and things like that. And oh man, it was difficult. But you got to choose 6 different players and had 6 different characters and qualities, and they had their special powers that they could use. And every time they use their powers, their health will go down a little bit. And oh my God, it was so hard, but I loved that game.
I think, is that the one that is on a lost episode of the podcast that we went back to play?
I believe so.
And it was way more difficult than we thought, and way less. This is when we first, like, early on went to go back and play retro games, and we're like, I don't know if this is going to fucking work. Like, these games, some of these are not good.
Yeah.
It's like ruining my expectation of what these games are. But
shots would come in from off the screen, and oh my God, it was just impossible.
That was nowhere near my list, but I applaud you for taking it, because it did mean, like, it was one of those situations of, like, you talk about how vibrant and colorful the Genesis was.
Yes.
It did feel like you were playing a comic, which was really, really cool. Large sprites, so you can see them really, really well. It was a very cool game at the time.
Yeah, there we go. So those are our 6 picks. Mike, you want to recap your team?
I will. My first pick, Sonic 3 and Knuckles. My second pick, Streets of Rage 2. My third pick, John Madden Football. My fourth pick, Aladdin. Specifically the Genesis one. It's a different game on the Super Nintendo, in case you're wondering. Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition and Outrun.
Okay, my team is going to be Sonic 2, Earthworm Jim, Mortal Kombat 2, Toe Jam and Earl, Echo the Dolphin, and X-Men. Ooh, tough teams.
These are both very good teams.
Yeah, these are good.
It was funny when we talked about there being fewer games on the Genesis than we had realized, like these. But when you dig into it, the ones that are good are fucking good.
Really good.
We didn't talk about Shinobi, like the whole Shinobi series.
Shinobi.
We didn't talk about Lion King, which was available on other consoles.
Yeah, I thought about Lion King.
Moonwalker, which is a weirdly received game. Comic Zone.
Comic Zone, I love Comic. We did Comic Zone on the podcast.
We did. Boogerman, which was best received on the Genesis. Vector Man, which was their answer to Donkey Kong.
Oh, Donkey Kong, yes.
Road Rash as well was another one. There's still a lot of games that we could have chosen, but that's my 6, and that's
there
your 6.
There we go. Well, let us know. What other games do we miss? What team do you think is better, and everything in between? Get us at Retrograde Mikey, at Retrograde Andy, or retrogradepod@gmail.com.
The Retrograde Podcast at gmail.com, and we've had a lot of people reaching out, and I promised last week that I would read another one. This one's going back a while just to show you how the backlog that we have. So we apologize for people who have reached out, and we haven't had a chance to read their comments on the podcast. But JFooty87 on Twitter has been a longtime listener to the podcast, and this is going back to our 300th episode when they sent us a note. It says, "Hey man, I'm a few weeks behind. Apologies. I just binged your last few episodes and heard your 300th, so I wanted to reach out to give my customary congratulations that I give to every podcast that I've listened to 300 times.
Yep.
Just kidding. I don't think there's another podcast I've listened to 300 times besides a couple fan podcasts about my favorite sports teams." He includes Liverpool in that list as well. Which is, he's coming for my sentiments there. But he goes on to talk about, some of the sentiments of just you and me bantering, but also the nostalgia of retro games relative to his experiences with his brother. Because I think I told the story on the podcast where my brother came over and we just started dummying stars in Super Mario 64. And he related a lot of that, like Turtles in Time, playing that with his brother. And it just, those experiences that you have playing with like a sibling or something especially, it just reminds you of those sleepover days, and that's kind of what we try to evoke sometimes on the podcast. So we appreciate Jay Footy for reaching out and sending some kind words. And if you have any of yours, let me know. Even if it's just about me, like that email the NDA. I can't talk about.
Oh, that NDA.
Can't talk about the
lawyers.
Offer they gave me. Yeah.
Oh man, so tough.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your kind words. And, honestly, submit whatever you want. It's about this episode. It could be about any episode. And we'll try and get it on the air, hopefully soon.
100%. Get it on the Aaronworth.
There we go. Get it on the Aaronworth, everybody. Until then, we love every single one of you, some more than others. My name's Andrew Bascom, and with me, as always, is the bad boy of podcasting, Mr. Bebop himself,
Mikey Aaronworth.
Aaronworth. This is the Retrograde Podcast.
Game over.
Oh, nice. This is how I imagine you've awakened the Winter Soldier or something like that. Like somebody's listening like, oh, gotta kill Queen Elizabeth. Oh, I missed out.
Furnished by Sad Styles Productions.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are recording our second episode in a row today.